request for that, so thanks for doing it.
If I forgot to do that. Welcome everyone who's joined. We're going to wait just a little bit longer. Love questions, so please pop up the Q&A and ask away.
We got our first question already, Bill, which is when will the recording be available via the website?
Yeah, we'll have the same link. Actually, will work to come to the recording. So it's actually immediately available right after we get done, even before we get a chance to sort of snip off the extra at the front and the end. But then we're also going to email out the link just to make it really easy for everybody to get to it and update the website saying so. Excellent. Let's kick this off. So thanks for joining us. I'm Bill Bice. I'm the CEO of InfoRoute ZebraWorks, and I've really been looking forward to this ever since we set this, because we're gonna go in and really show all the cool stuff that we have been working on that really came about since the start of the pandemic. We were fortunately in a really good place to leverage queues that we had released previously to deal with first going remote and now hybrid operations. So I'm here with Ken Bassam, who's our Chief Revenue Officer. Ken.
Hello, Bill. Nice to meet you.
And Mark McNeil, who is stepping in for Phil Houston. Phil's our Director of Design, and so Phil and his team do all the design work and all the stuff that we're going to show you. Mark, you're the other side of that because you are Director of Development, and so you have to actually make all this stuff come to life. So welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
And thanks for jumping in at the last minute. So Ken, do you want to start showing stuff so that I don't have to just
sounds like a good plan. Let's see here, 1 second. Let's see if we can figure out how to do this. All right. How about that?
That is perfect. So let's go on to our favorite diagram. I'm going to use this just to talk about some of the bigger pieces of what we have done with ScanQ. So we initially launched our first scanning platform in 2011. That we called InfoRoute. We have renamed it to ScanQ, which is the 6th generation version of our scanning platform, to really represent all of the huge changes that we have that we've put in over the last 18 months. And if you start on the left-hand side, what you'll see is that we've really gone device agnostic. So we've long been deep inside the MFD. We started the company in 2003 as pioneers in embedded cost recovery. So we've been building embedded software for MFDs forever. But one of the things that came out in the switch to remote, it's still very, very true with hybrid operations, is that you really need to be able to support other devices. So now if you have somebody who is working at home and needs to digitize a document, well, let's pull that desktop scanner in to the firm's infrastructure. We're going to show you our new iOS app that allows you to do the same thing. You can be at a client's office and scan a document. And it doesn't matter how you get the document into the system. It's now going to apply all the same technology. It's going to be OCR'd the same way. We're going to apply the same efficient workflows to it. Now device agnostic. Now you can always do what we've long been able to do, which is represented by that direct arrow going through the middle there of just go directly from the device and into whatever core system we integrate with. So into the DMS, into the accounting system, expense management system, and so on. But you can also leverage queues, which is our workflow technology. So with a queue, you can you can digitize that document and send it directly to the recipient, who can then have delegates that have access to their documents, or you can send it to a shared queue. And the combination of those two things allows us to create all kinds of really powerful workflows. And we're going to dive into a bit and show you what that means and how you can use those. So you can have a shared queue for docketing. You could have a shared queue for the accounting department. Lots of firms use a shared queue for mail distribution. So they'll just scan the physical mail. MailQ is really a workflow within ScanQ. And so you can separate out the jobs, the scanning from the profiling and identifying the recipients if you so choose. The point is that it's enormously flexible how we implement those workflows. And we were talking about this yesterday, Ken. It's surprising how different something that sounds as straightforward as mail distribution, how those workflows can be, vastly different depending on the firms.
Well, yeah, we went out at the first of the pandemic as we were talking about that. We had a lot of clients reach out to us talking about or asking us, hey, can you help us scan our mail and distribute it to folks? And at first we said, sure, you can scan anything and get it to them however you would like. And we initially thought, email's pretty quick, right? And then we thought that there's probably a better way. So we leveraged queues to build workflow around that whole process. But I think to what you're getting to, Bill, is it was really surprising to take something as simple as pushing mail down a hallway. I don't want to say simple, but pretty straightforward, pushing mail down a hallway and handing it out, and thinking that could be replicated for all firms. And it can, but every firm does that a little bit differently and has different processes for how they want to handle the mail once you move to the digital world versus just handing, because there's a lot more options available to you. And so people started getting creative about exactly how they wanted these things to occur. And that's where Digital Mailroom came from.
Yeah, and our ideas of what we put into ScanQ, they come from you. They come from our clients. And so we got a lot of experience as it relates to the specific issue right at the beginning of the pandemic, seeing how firms were dealing with this. We learned a ton from that. And we've added a lot of functionality specifically around that from client requests in order to be able to manage all those different options. Queues itself comes directly from client feedback. We talk about that as stand up versus sit down activity. And these days people don't really like hanging out and touching the MFD as much as previously. And so it's really great to be able to just get documents scanned using the best device possible and then do the work back at your desk. So should we drop in and show kind of the bigger picture on queues? I mean, the core concept I want you to take with queues is that it's really the inbox for all of your digital documents. So Ken, show it off.
Yeah, so first by way of just I wanted to say that we're going to go through this at a very high level to kind of show you how it works, and then Bill's going to actually let me show software today as well. So after we get through this portion, we'll jump over to a live environment and show the iOS app, show queues, how it works, the way that we've set it up. And that's really the important thing is when we talk about the at least 50 different ways, because that's how many firms we talked to and worked with on digital mail, we just wanted to build flexibility into the entire process. So as you come into queues, which is where we're at, and I'm just looking at my queue, you see the document owner is me over here. And then over here to the right, we'll see anything that's been scanned, either that I've scanned from my iOS device or a desktop scanner, or that somebody scanned for me. And I can come through and see thumbnail sketches of what it is, whatever document name they chose to give it, and then different categories and tags that are completely firm definable. So whatever makes the most sense for the firm based on the workflow, and it's not a one-time makes sense, you can change and add to those, assuming you have security rights to do so, and really just make it fit your workflow. You can see when it was created, and then there's continually the auto archiving built in as well, which again is firm definable for how long we want to keep these things before they remove from this queue, and then how long we want to keep them in archive overall. So from within here, just carrying on with the mail example, I can come over to categories, and categories and tags are dynamically defined or created based on how somebody's categorized or tagged them at the time of scanning. So you might come in and have a bunch, or you might have few, just depending on what these descriptions are. But I can click down into mail and just specifically look at anything that was mail incoming that has been routed to me. And at this point, assuming you can't completely make out that document, you can double click or single click rather, and come into this view and get the full view of the document. So what's really cool about this, we've had this for a long time, but Mark and his team really added a ton of features at this point. So over here to the right, we can do things like editing the document, which I'm going to talk about in a second. If I wanted to just route the document, hey, this is exactly how I want it, let's go give it to the DMS. We could do that, or even reassign, or maybe it's nothing that I want to keep and I could delete it from here, assuming I have security to do so. And then down here below, maybe that document name isn't one that resonates with you. So you might want to come through and rename it something a little bit more generic, or we can click edit and come in here. And this is a new feature of ScanQ, which is Adobe style PDF editing built directly within your workflow. So we talked to a lot of folks who were getting mail and said, okay, it's digital now. Are there things that I can do with it prior to putting it in the DMS, or prior to sending it outside of the firm, or even prior to reassigning it to somebody else? So in this instance, you just click edit, you highlight what you want to highlight, you annotate or underline what you want to underline, put any notes that you would like, and then it saves the document, and then ultimately you can go decide to route it or send it at that point. Now I can also do things like redactions. So if I want to take a complete section out before I send it outside of the firm, I certainly could. So I'll just apply a redaction here, and then end up back in my queue where I can determine what I want to do with this. So when we get to the live software, we'll be a little bit more DMS agnostic. We continue to integrate with all of the standard DMSs out there. I'm going to choose to route this, and I can route it to accounting or to a network folder or to really anything, right? So these are the workflows that the firm defines to choose where you want this document to live, right? So queues is just a temporary holding spot to where we can edit, make decisions, and then ultimately get it to where it needs to go. So in this instance, I'm going to pretend it needs to belong in my DMS. So I can click on I manage, and using this example, it automatically knows who I am because I'm entering from my queue. And I can go look at favorites or work list or my matters or search workspaces. But then once I get the matter that I'd like, I get the sub matter or the folder that I would like, I can just select that. And then all the defaults are set for you that you can override if you have security to do so, and then ultimately route it. So this is a really important distinction. And again, we'll talk about it in more depth than anything that Mark, you would like to add. But we built in one of the things that we heard too is, hey, since it's a digital document, if I hand a paper document to somebody, I have to physically go back to their office to say, hey, did you do anything with that piece of certified mail that I gave you yesterday? Now we have a lot more options, right? Because it's digital. So can we apply workflow? Can we apply some oversight and governance to the whole process in order to be able to see what actually happened to all these things that we scanned for this individual? So within the activity stream or audit trail, you can come through and search, obviously, because that could get quite big. You can sort it by date ranges or different queues or the status of the documents, but it allows you to see the detail of what was scanned, who it was given to, if it was reassigned, if there were edits made, as well as where it ultimately ended up, if it was sent over to the DMS, and then directly within there as well, if it's in the DMS, just have the ability to click over to that and get to the document itself. So as Bill mentioned earlier, we continue to do everything that we've done in the past. So embedded at the MFD, we've enhanced the desktop scanning support that we had, and then we created this thing called, and by we, I'm just pointing at Mark, but this iOS app, which you can go get at the Apple Store. It's not going to do you any good until it's set up, but you can go out there and see that it's there. But from within this, I can just click on my app. What's really nice about this is it uses whatever the firm's access control system is, right? So it's all behind your infrastructure. There's nothing that we're storing on the phone or doing anything like this. You just continue to log in as you normally would. We can continue with that. And we'll take a look at this in a second, but I just use the native camera function to capture a document. You can apply some standard editing that the phone comes with if there's certain basic things that you want to do. And then you come into that area where we can select tags or select categories, and of course, name the document, again, firm definable. And then after you upload it to ScanQ, it takes us back to where we just were, right? So I can capture a document regardless of where I'm at. If I'm in a client's office, if I'm, anywhere that I could be, capture that, it automatically goes to queues. As Bill mentioned earlier as well, it's automatically or OCR'd, right? So it's immediately OCR'd as it's going over and processing, and it's immediately available to me. So as soon as it hits my queue, I can review the document, route it, reassign it, and do everything that we just spent some time looking at that point.
We just had a question, Ken, about what the OCR engine is, and I think it brings up a couple of great points. So we're using Abby as our OCR engine, which is, it's the best engine out there. We got asked a couple of days ago a really great question, which is, why does an image captured on the phone look so good? And frankly, it's really because of Abby, because Abby is processing that image just like it is every image that comes into ScanQ, regardless of where it's coming from. So it's getting deskewed, it's getting cleaned up before you ever see it. And then, of course, you can use the PDF editing capabilities to deal with any other challenges that have come up. So if if a page is upside down or there's a blank page in there, it's really easy to fix those problems. Another point that I want to make that I think is really cool about how we manage queues is that we wanted the recipient to be able to see the document immediately. So the moment it's scanned and assigned to the recipient, you're able to see it, even if it hasn't been OCR'd yet. Now, you're not going to be able to do PDF editing, good PDF editing until it's OCR'd. You could edit the image, but much better to wait for the OCR to finish. So you're getting immediate delivery of that digital document. And of course, it doesn't matter where your recipient's at, because they can get it anywhere. It doesn't matter whether they're in the office or at home or a client's office today. And then it doesn't matter where it's in the process. So we have a lot of firms that have split the work up. So, central scanning is getting the documents in, then there are delegates or a team that's dealing with the distribution and profiling. And it doesn't matter for the recipient where it's at in that process, if it's been profiled in the DMS or if it's sitting in the queue. Any point in time, they're able to immediately access that document in their queue and pull it up. It's always the same user experience for them, which is just ideal, because you're able to get the document immediately, and it doesn't change from the attorney's perspective over time as it's going through that workflow.
Awesome. So in addition to this, we talked about or looked at the activity stream, the audit trail, so you can search and sort and see what's happened. But then we also had a request, as we're doing this, and even, including cost recovery, looking at scans, looking at what's printed, what's not printed, things of that nature. They said, we had feedback that we wanted some better integrated dashboards. So we brought those in as well. So this version includes the ability to come out and see tons of different things. If we're tracking it, you have the ability to report on it. That does not necessarily mean that the report's already created, but the tool is in there, right? So we have some standard dashboards based on just feedback that we've gotten, things that we've installed at firms and so forth. But we also have the ability to, of course, and you have the ability to create custom reports based on the information that you want to see. So the biggest thing is we're tracking everything that's going on, and then we're giving you a visual representation of everything that's going on based on the type of data that's important to you. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing, if that's okay, Bill, and go get into live software. Does that work?
I think that's awesome.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure this out. Well, that looks like it. Maybe not. All right, you seen anything quite yet?
We're with you.
Okay, so this is exactly what we just looked at, except that it's live, which is great and a lot more fun for me. So if I click on something and I want to go back or do something else, I have the ability to do so. So keep in mind, this is how we've set this up. And by we, I mean the sales team for demonstrations and development and stuff like this. So again, I'm in something that I've titled my personal queue, which is my individual queue. You can name those queues, whatever makes the most sense for you. We've really spent a lot of time in the personal queue side, but we'll get to on the shared queues as well. So if I come out to MailQ, what you'll see is this is an example of a shared queue. And so there can be a lot of people in here, right? So if it were an accounting queue, you could have multiple members. If it's a office services, there could be multiple members. So there's really a lot of variety and a lot of different ways that you can use shared queues from this point. In my instance, I've just got 2 folks here, and it works the same way for delegate access. So if I come back into my personal queue and I've assigned any delegates to have rights to action these documents on my behalf, it's very granular from a security standpoint. So you can choose which documents they have the ability to work with, which documents they can't, which can be seen, which can't be seen, things like this. So in my categories, remembering that those are dynamically created based on the categories and tags that you've done at the firm, I can come through and see scan, mail, and private scan. So this is just a representation of what's over here to the right. And I've got different tags as well. So just like we did a second ago, we can just drill down into the mail in particular. I have all the same data that we just looked at. I can come through, and if I want to get a live version of this or pull this up, I can. So I'm just coming into my viewer. I've got all the same capabilities that we looked at a second ago. I guess I could make that a little bit larger. So I can change the document tag. I can rename the document. I can do all sorts of things like this. In this instance, we're going to go into edit because my name's on this one, and I probably should take that out. So we'll go into edit. You could come through and just highlight and apply a redaction. If you wanted to come across and take this out, right? You could come through and just annotate. So maybe I want to highlight that my particular name's in this. You can come through and do that as well. Let's try that one more time. There we go. And see if I can work this mouse. So anyway, there's a ton of different things, wet signatures, right? So you can come through and insert signatures in here, add shapes, do different stamps and things like that you would want to do. Once you're done editing, you can click save the document. And then at this point, I could choose to do a couple of things. So I could reassign. So if I just want to come out and say, hey, I've made my edits, I want to go search for a particular person within the organization, I just start doing that with type ahead. It goes out and finds the person I'm looking for, and then I could reassign and it will send it over to their queue. Again, for today, I'm going to go to route, and I told you about that, right? Or route, depending on who's on. But as we come through this is that DMS agnostic part. So I didn't put every one of them up there, but you'll see, iManage and WorldDocs and NetDocs and, Bill's original company, ProLaw, they're all built within here. And what's nice about routing a document is you've got step-by-step instructions. So if I come in and say, I totally forgot what I'm supposed to do, I can come over here and say, select a workflow, and we'll just select this again because I know I'm logged in. And again, it knows who I am, so it brings over my favorites, my work list, my matters, my workspaces that I could search. And then just using that exact same example, pick the subfolder that I would like. It brings over my standards. I could come through and say, hey, let's change this file format to a Word document, whatever might make the most sense, and then ultimately choose to route the document. In this instance, you'll see it's being processed, and then I can finish and it's done. So there's all sorts of notifications that can occur as well, and we can certainly go capture a document if that makes sense to do. But in addition to email notifications, which we've supported for a long time, so when a document is routed to the DMS, you can get a success notification. When something's scanned to your queue, you can automatically get or you have mail type or you have a scan notification. But in ScanQ, we've also introduced desktop notifications that have some flexibility associated with those as well, So when you're scanning things and you want to know right away, you have the ability through a desktop, just a tray notification, to be able to see that. And what's really nice about either one of those notifications is it takes you to the document itself. So I don't have to go to a screen and then log in and then choose which one I want. It just takes me directly to what that notification is referring to. So I can immediately get to the work product at that point. Now, because I've routed it, it's now gone from my queue, and I can see everything else that's there. We've got viewed and unviewed, obviously, notifications. And then this purge date, as I had mentioned earlier as well. So based on the type of document, the type of queue, different things like that, you can choose what your archive settings will be that are going to remove that document from this spot. I believe that when we get a little closer, we also get a little red notifications when I come into queues. The red indicates, I guess, danger or the fact that the document's going to go away. So you have the ability to know which ones you should action first. And then directly within here too, just the activity stream, maybe not limit it to just today, but we'll refresh this. And this is what I was talking about. So based on, again, security and who you want to have access to this, but a lot of individuals want to see it as well. What did I go do with that? I can come through and look on any particular item that I would like and see what was viewed, what was edited, what was changed. If I want to go look at the document that's maybe in the DMS, I have a direct link to it here as well. And then again, with the different queues for filtering, searching, date ranges, everything across the board from that standpoint. We have one firm in particular who've made this the primary view. So when an end user, I think in particular an attorney in that instance, would come to queues, they would just see the activity stream. So not only what they've done if they're in working in the system, but what anybody's done on their behalf who might have been a delegate. So they just quickly wanted to come in and see what was happening. And if they want to get access to something, be able to do that, as Bill said, as soon as it's scanned.
But Ken, you showed a ton of different workflows, and that's all definable. So Mark, what are the different levels at which you can determine which workflows show up?
Sorry, Bill, it broke up. What was the question?
So the workflows are definable in terms of what a different user sees for workflows. So what's our ability for how we can define those at different levels?
Sure. I mean, workflows can be allocated to an individual in terms of when they log in, what they see, and what they have access to. They can be definable at the devices that they're working from, or when they click into their queue and the documents that they're routing. So it's really mostly centered around the individual largely in terms of what they can do based on the permissions they have within the system, and kind of trying to bring that together a little bit as well to explain a couple other key points Ken's covering. Tags amounts to a definable filter. Categories is that, but also so much more in the sense that it's the connective tissue for that access. So permissions are actually tied to a category, and then those categories are allocated to the user or the user's delegates. So what that really means is, an example, we can create this, let's call it a shared scan category. We can say within that shared scan category, a user can make edits or maybe not make edits. And then that category is shared by the owner of the queue with their delegates, giving them access to see the document, and in this case, not edit it. So the category is a filter, but it's actually the connective tissue driving the permissions and what people can do with the documents when they see them within the queue. So it's actually a pretty key piece to the overall concept.
And that's why we see like private scan as a category here, because you could scan something to a recipient and their delegates can't see that one document.
Correct. So it's that category that's really driving the visibility in the queue and what people can and can't do.
So categories really derive access and security, and then tags are sort of filtering that applies across categories.
Correct. A couple of other things I thought I might mention too, regarding the redaction that Ken was showing. mean, I think the key there is that that is not just a visual redaction within the document itself. That is a true, I'll call it destructive redaction. So the data within the document itself about what has been highlighted and redacted is officially gone. It does not exist. It is not a recoverable piece of data within the image or the underlying text layer. It is a true full redaction from within the file, which is an important thing. And
our use case for that, I mean, the way that firms ask for that is, well, I have this document and I want to send it to opposing counsel. I want real redaction to occur. So that's exactly what we did.
Yep. And just a couple other notes I thought I'd throw in there as we were clicking through iManage. I want to note the fact that with that integration, we're supporting their universal API for integration, which means we're able to connect securely through modern security standards and protocols to iManage, either on premise or in the cloud. So that's a key piece as well in terms of access control and security. And you know, the other option here too, as you can see in the grid, there's checkboxes next to the different items. So if you wanted to actually select several documents and push a group of them through in a routing effort, there you go, you can actually do things in bulk, saving some time if you don't want to go through each document individually and route it off. So there are some step saving features we include to make dealing with multiple documents easier.
So we have a question mark first about what do we call bill back now, which is what we've renamed cost queue in our new naming convention. And the question is, does that integrate to users authentication on the devices? And we've got lots of ways you can authenticate on the MFDs.
Correct. Ways we've supported for many years, including a simple user code login, like a timekeeper number, to the full network authentication with the domain, username, and password, or perhaps a username like a network login with a user-defined PIN code. We also support proxy card authentication on the devices themselves. And as Ken was mentioning earlier, with things like the iOS app, we're actually using federated authentication mechanism to authenticate the user directly against the firm's network user store, like Active Directory. So many methods.
Excellent. What's next, Ken?
All right, yeah, we'll take a smart break for a second. That was great. You guys added all that. We'll get back to software, and then Mark, you can clean me up again after I'm done, if that works. So we're going to do this. Let's stop sharing for just a second, and then we're going to reshare. But I want to reshare the iOS app, so I can figure out how to do this screen. I think so. Start broadcast. And then let me know when we're there. Looks like it, right? It's always fun demoing on your live phone, but I think we'll get there. So directly within all of my apps, you'll see that InfoRoute ZebraWorks app. As we pull that up, you have a few different options, and we'll talk about each of them. I'm not going to sign out for purposes of not typing in my passcode, because we're pretty strict about what those have to be, and I have to write it down and go get it. So we're just going to leave it at this for now. This is just showing me a history of everything that I've scanned or everything that I've sent to ScanQ, and I'll explain what that means here in just a second. But if I wanted to come through and just show this live, we can come through and say, hey, let's scan a document. I happen to have a InfoRoute contract on my desk. After I capture that, right, I can go create the next page, whichever. I'll have to take that off and then hit save. And at this point, it comes through and we have those different options that we had looked at. So you could say scan document or scan contract, choose in my, as we talked about, my tags, and then of course my categories as well. And then hit done and send. And then now it's uploading to ScanQ, actually to a different, or to the system that our sales system's connected to. And you'll see the submission in progress. So you have that comfortable feeling that it actually happened and is going over there. And then upon that being completed, it will give you the check mark, and then it's immediately available So if I'm just scanning something at my desk and I wanted to go to queues to edit it, I could do that, right? Or anything of that nature. You can also come through and just say, I want to choose a photo, right? So I could send that to ScanQ if it's already on there. If there's a document that I want to choose, I can just go out and choose that, maybe set that up first, and come through. We'll look at that in just a second as well. But that's really cool. So you can choose the document, take a photo, choose a photo, scan a document, and the goal is just get it to ScanQ. And there's an important thing that they'll probably say, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. What's really cool about this is the document's gone, it's off my device at this point, right? So I've authenticated to the firm's infrastructure in order to send this document to queues. And then as soon as it's sent, it's removed from the device itself. So I have a history right here of things, but that's all that it is. It's not a link to the document. It's literally taken off the device itself. I don't know, Bill, Mark, if you want to add any depth to that, because I think it is a really important feature.
And there's kind of a related question coming to Mark, which is, can the app work in offline mode?
I see that. I'll go ahead and answer that. Pardon me. The app does need to be connected to properly upload documents to the person's print queue or scan queue. So, one of the key reasons for that is security. So one of the things we took a lot of pride in and took a lot of care with the iOS app is we're very careful not to store anything sensitive within the app itself. So we're actually not storing any image data, metadata, document data, sensitive data any longer than it takes for the transmit to occur. And in order to maintain that kind of security and limited lifespan, it does need to be connected to function.
Yeah, I was using the normal scan functionality of an iPhone when we first got this to try to compare and contrast in a demonstration. And I pulled open my notes, and that's how I typically would scan a document. And I saw my wife's W-2 from where I had scanned it in order to send it off for a home loan. And so it was a great example, which I hadn't really thought of, that you need to go back and if you're using any third-party scanning apps, go clean those documents off of your phone, because a lot of times they'll live there for forever. And that's maybe not a good thing. If we've got any IT folks on, I think they'd probably agree with me. So we wanted to make sure that that was the case for ScanQ as well. A couple of other things that we'll look at if we come over here to print queue. I don't have any print jobs, but I'll show you what's really cool is I can come up now and print anything from my phone, which we'll look at in just a second. I can print existing things on my phone. I could, I don't know why you would take a picture of something and then print it because you'd already have it in physical form, but that's also available. But I can come through to my print jobs, and if I click this, I can go up to any printer that we have just by putting a sticker on it, scan the QR code. It will show me any job that I have within my queue to print. We're just going to go back to that, and then I can release it. So I just walk up, don't touch anything, scan it with my phone, and then choose which jobs I want to release. And then upon doing that, it'll release at the printer where I'm currently located. But to do that, you can just come over here, say, choose photo, take photo, choose a document. We'll choose a document in this instance. I think so. Let's see if we can find that again. Always want me to set these things up. All right, maybe not recently deleted. We'll choose a photo instead, because I think I have those out there. All right, maybe that'll work. Scan document, print, and then it's just going to send it to print queue. But the important distinction, so it's in my print jobs at this point. I don't want to continue printing things in our Tempe office because they ask occasionally why so many documents are being printed out. But you can see the print job itself. It'll stack there. It'll also stack any of the people that I'm a delegate for. Right. So if I come up to a printer, or if I'm walking by a printer and I want to just scan it to see if there's anything people have asked me to print out for them, or anything that I've printed that I want to release at this point, then you have the ability to do that at that point. I'm sure there's something I missed there on Mark. What would you like to add?
No, you really kind of captured all the essence of uploading to your print queue. I think the key is one of the things we wanted to make sure was available for users is that picture, the ability to pull files off the device from other connected services, like as you saw there when you popped up quickly, your iCloud account, your OneDrive account, if you're using corporate OneDrive, other services if you're connected on your phone. So integration that extends beyond just files that may be locally on your device. And of course, it doesn't just work on an iPhone, it works on an iPad as well.
Awesome.
So a couple of questions came up that I said I'd respond to live here. So why don't I do that real quick? There was one about ScanQ connect to a flatbed scanner. The simple answer is yes. The flatbed scanners obviously don't typically have capabilities for us to put software on them. So the way we facilitate that is the scanner is set up to scan to a specific folder location that then the system monitors, can sweep up the files and push them into a shared queue, personal queue, or other destination within the system. The other option too is we do have the ability to use a cover page, a QR coded cover page that someone would place on top of the document when they scan it through the flatbed scanner, and that would direct it into the right queue or other location within our system. And
so the cover scheme is really a reservation system, so you can build a workflow ahead of time with whatever depth you want into it. And then you just print a page with a barcode on it that defines that. And then anytime you use it, you're going to get that exact end result.
And the other question that I saw was, are you able to charge back clients for scanned pages? And the answer is most certainly yes, in the sense that the iOS app specifically is just an onboarding tool to get things into your queue. As Ken had been showing previously, once it's in your queue, you can go through all the normal actions that we've discussed so far in terms of reassigning, editing, routing to a destination, and then as part of that routing workflow, if chargebacks and cost recovery has been turned on, the users asked for their client matter information at that time. So it's actually just an extra screen, extra step at the end of the workflow when you're routing.
And there's a question about adding metadata when capturing in the app, which I think we skipped through that pretty quickly, but it's there.
Yep, you can specify your category or tag at the time you're uploading your scanned document through the app.
Another question about Android version, which we're working on, but it's not available yet.
Excellent.
So great questions. Appreciate it. Keep them coming.
We've got about 20 minutes left. Sales guy, so I want to look at roadmap stuff, talk a little bit about that as well. And then I think we've got some technical details to cover as we're going over roadmap. So if I did it correctly, I should have our architecture diagram being shared right now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're looking great. So this is the bridge to the cloud. So ScanQ runs either on-premise or in a virtual private cloud. We really want to be on domain in order to enable the deep integrations that we have. The ZebraWorks bridge then allows us to connect with all that on-premise technology to our SaaS platform, ZebraWorks. The iOS app communicates with ZebraWorks, which is communicating through the firm's firewall with the ZebraWorks bridge in order to enable all the things that you've just seen with the iOS app. You want to put any more detail into how we actually do that, Mark?
Sure. So with our ZebraWorks platform based in Azure, the mobile app itself is connecting through that platform using secure communication, of course. And then from there, our mobile, it's connecting, communicating down to our ZebraWorks mobile bridge, as we refer to it. So it's a one-way push from the cloud into the bridge, and once documents, both prints and scans, are transmitted to the bridge, it's then knows how to communicate essentially to the other on-premise systems that then facilitate the actions with those documents. Another key there is security. The mobile bridge In addition to what can be done from a networking standpoint, the software itself can be set up to restrict incoming requests to certain whitelisted IP ranges. It also too does not retain any data in and of itself, since it is the external point within the network that all this is being facilitated through.
And that connection's via whitelisted IP address, so it's a very, very secure connection that we're creating here.
Correct. Yep.
And it is optional to use the bridge to the cloud. It's necessary to support the iOS app. And it's really the foundation that allows us to do the other things that we're working on right now, which is to provide queues in other places. So the next thing that we're doing in the iOS app is exposing your queue in the app to view documents, so that when you get that email notification and you click on the link in it, if you're on your phone and you have the app installed, then it takes you right to the app and pulls the document up. So this is the classic case of your attorneys on the way to the client's office. They've got a really important document they need to review, and so you scan it, they get the notification right away, and they're able to pull it up right away. And then we're taking queues and adding access to queues via an Outlook add-in and a Teams add-in. And to me, this is really the ideal solution, because a lot of firms right at the start of the pandemic went to, well, we'll scan to email. And there's a lot of problems with that, in clogging up your email system and not being able to have any sort of tracking or audit trail on what happens with those documents. By putting queues in Outlook, we sort of get the best of both worlds, because we're not clogging up the email system, but yet the incoming documents are sitting there right for you in Outlook. We're doing that as a universal add-in, so it works with the Outlook FAT client, with the web client, and with the Outlook app. So you're able to get to it from just about anywhere.
And Bill, the key to that, or one of the things that we heard from a client, was talking about, you're accessing it via your phone, but it's different than email, right? Because it's not a copy of the document. You're actually accessing it through the app behind the firm's infrastructure, just like everything that we've just spent time looking at, which seemingly is a better way to control the number of versions and who's doing what with it, and then to have that oversight or governance of the entire process.
Yeah, and mentioning the word universal reminded me of another question that came in via chat, which is when is our universal API for iManage available? And that is part of the ScanQ 6.0 release, so it's available right now.
I think one other item, Bill, I wanted to add just about the ZWorks platform, it wasn't clear previously, is it's a very, what I'll call, transactional based system. I mean, we're not retaining any data, any images, personally identifiable user information within our ZWorks platform. It is transactional in the sense that data is only used and retained as long as it takes for that action to be completed, and no longer than that. So again, security and privacy at the forefront of it.
Yeah, and we're using Auth0 as the access control method for the app. And so if you're using two-factor authentication, then your login to the app is exactly the same as where you log anywhere else. And it's very, if your firm is running any SaaS applications today, it's very likely that it's using the same exact access control system. So a lot of the HR systems in the cloud, they're using Auth0, and so it's the same process that firms are already using today. So there's a question about regions for the data center, and it's certainly our preference for firms who want to run in the cloud to run this within their own Azure tenancy. so that we can be connected to the firm's domain. That also means you have, tremendous flexibility in terms of where the data resides, because it's where, whichever Azure data center you choose to run it in. We can run this in a separate Azure tenant, but all of our large firms to this point have chosen to either run in VMs on premise or run in their own Azure tenancy, just because of the integration benefits that gives us. It's a little bit different for our mid-sized firms, where it's a little bit more common to run this in a standalone Azure tenant, and not be as concerned about Active Directory integration and so on. So we've gotten some great detailed questions here. There's another one that's really about how is ScanQ available. So if you already have our cost recovery platform, then ScanQ is an add-on module. You can implement ScanQ by itself. You can also implement the MailQ portion of ScanQ if really the problem you want to solve out of the gate is the digital mailroom. It's MailQ is really just the digital mailroom workflow of ScanQ implemented for that purpose. So I love these questions and feedback. What was there anything else you wanted to cover, Ken? It seems like you've gotten all the bullet points.
Yeah, I did it on time too, which is a little even under time. I mean, I guess the thing that I would stress and need to is that there's, we didn't look at the cover scan process. We didn't dive into, and we talked about it, but we didn't dive into a lot of the things, maybe even some depth on the iOS app. So we can do further deep dives at any point, one-on-one individually, set up some specifics for firms, particular workflows. So I do think we scratched the surface a little bit. We showed a lot, but I think there's a lot more to talk about and show as well. So we're welcome or happy to do that at any point.
So another question just came in about defining permissions based on departments and teams, and can you configure the queues based on departments and teams?
Yeah, the answer to both of those are yes. So in the case of a shared queue that we, its real purpose is to be defined for a department or a team, a group of people. Within the definition of that shared queue, you assign either a role from within our system, of which then users are assigned to that role, or even individuals to that particular queue on an individual basis. So you can do it based on individuals or roles to really define who has access to that queue and then who doesn't. So only those members with permissions are able to even see the queue in the list, the menu list on the left-hand side of the screen, as we saw it earlier. And can you configure them based on departments or teams? I think the overly simplistic answer there is you can configure it based on whatever you choose. You can base it on a working group, a department, a team, any real use case that can be thought of is the purpose for a shared queue. It can be defined how you see fit.
Yeah, we've been in legal for a long time, so you learn that kind of flexibility is really crucial. And so I think flexibility and integration are like two foundational elements that you've got to be great at in order to do a good job of taking care of law firms. And then there was a follow-up to that about proxy users, which I imagine is delegate access.
Yeah, kind of an on behalf access. So in the case of a shared queue, I mean, there is no concept of a delegate because it is by nature a shared queue that already has a group of people assigned to it. But for the ScanQ, the MyScanQ, or as we saw in Ken's demonstration, was called personal queue in that case, then yes, the user who's the owner of that queue and those documents has full control to assign delegates, and through that delegate assignment and how the delegates are associated with those document categories we mentioned earlier, controls again security for what documents others can see and what they can do with them. So we've given a lot of control with this latest release in both of those areas.
As we mentioned before, even if somebody has delegate access, say to an attorney's queue, you can still create private documents within that. So a lot of flexibility there.
Mm-hmm. Is there barcode reading functionality? In terms of, do we support the ability to use a QR code in that reservation system? Yes. So our reservation system within InfoRoute and Command Center and queues is all QR code based, so that the reservation has a QR code and then the system reads it in order to find the reservation for the instructions that need to be acted on when the document's processed. Aside from that, if there's some other context to barcode reading, would love to answer a more detailed answer if I can.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cases where, because the reservations in our system are reusable, so you can set up workflows that you're going to do repeatedly and just have a folder of cover scans that you've printed out ahead of time, and use them as many times as applicable. It makes when that kind of direct integration, like if you want to profile directly to the DMS, for example, makes that really efficient.
There's a question about color detection, chargeback, and control for print and copy. Yes, when copying or printing, we can detect color within that document and charge back at a increased rate or different rate from, say, black and white when printing and copying. And as such, we do have controls both for print cost control and copy cost control. So on the device within our embedded software, that's how we facilitate the copy cost control and chargebacks. And for printing, it's through a desktop application that prompts the user for the billing information at the time they print it.
And there's a question about SharePoint integration, which we are working on. It's not available today, but we've got some specific partners around which that is important.
There's a question about device restrictions on the copier and printer side. I mean, ultimately the answer is no. We can work with any manufacturer of copier or printer. For certain models or makes of copiers, we have better integration with our embedded technology. That includes Canon, Xerox, Konica Minolta, Ricoh, Lexmark. There's one other in there that I'm missing, Canon. So most of the major manufacturers for the embedded software technology we support. And then even for those that don't support the embedded technology, we offer a tablet-based solution that can be attached to the copier to facilitate everything for other brands as well. In terms of the print integration, especially with the iOS app, completely agnostic, doesn't matter what printer you're printing from, because we don't actually have any software loaded on the device, which is the main reason for the iOS app. HP as well, yes. So for printing, absolutely. HP, we support print capture, cost recovery on it. With HPs, if there's a need for copy and scan functionality, that would be through that tablet solution I mentioned just a minute ago. HP is not a manufacturer that we supply embedded software for.
Awesome, great questions. I appreciate everybody joining us and making this much more interactive. It's fun when we have in-depth Q&A like this. I think we're there. We got 1 minute to go. Ken, do you want to? You got any closing remarks? I always ask you this, and you go like, "Yeah, nothing to say."
Yeah, no, I left it all in the field as you will. No, I do. Yeah, if there's anything that we didn't get to answer, anything that you were hoping to see that you didn't see, or were confused about what you saw, just please reach out. We'd love to have a conversation with you, talk to you in more depth as much as it makes sense, and just appreciate everybody's time today and joining. Had a lot of fun.
Awesome, great way to end it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.